Imagine you wake up tomorrow and you're told, congratulations, you're officially in the top 1% of all wealth on earth. What does that look like? A yacht, a penthouse, a private jet? Now, what if I told you that in different periods of history, being in the top 1% meant something almost unrecognizable? That in some eras it literally meant you could own other human beings. That in others it meant surviving winter with full grain stores when everyone around you was starving. Today we're traveling through 10,000 years of human history to answer one question. What was it actually like to be filthy rich? Not just the stats, but the lifestyle, the food, the homes, the power, the risks, and the things that even the richest people on earth did not have access to. The answers are going to surprise you. Ancient Egypt. Before money existed in the way we know it, wealth was physical and immediate. We're talking grain, cattle, land, and labor. And the first institution to control all of that, not a king, not a government, a temple. In ancient Egypt, the civilization that basically invented civilization, the temples functioned as the world's first banks. They tracked debts, issued credit, and accumulated grain, like modern hedge funds accumulate assets. If you ran the temple, you were the top 1%. But here's the twist. Even the richest people had no concept of privacy, indoor plumbing, or medical care beyond herbal remedies and prayer. Your gorgeous multi-room estates still had dirt floors. Your diet was rich by ancient standards, but by modern ones, no. You'd have scurvy within a year. Top 1% was relative, and in 3000 BC, the baseline was very, very low. The Roman Empire. Ancient Rome is where the top 1% started to look something like the extravagance we might actually recognize. This was the first civilization in history where the ultra-rich competed with each other over who could throw the most excessive party, serving peacock brains, exotic imported spices, and flamingo tongues, in banquets designed to demonstrate your power and wealth. If you were in the Roman top 1%, your home wasn't a house. It was a domus, a private urban estate averaging around 3,000 square meters. You had a central atrium, multiple reception rooms, a garden decorated with sculptures and frescoes, servants' quarters, private baths, and a staff of dozens. Servants, many of them enslaved, were your most visible status symbol. In Roman times, wealth bought political power directly. The Senate was dominated by a small number of patrician families who used their wealth to control legislation, military appointments, and the courts. Marcus Crassus, considered the richest man in Rome, worth somewhere around 170 billion in today's dollars, died on a military campaign he funded himself, training to gain the military prestige his money couldn't fully buy. Even the top 1% wanted something they couldn't purchase. The Renaissance. Here's where something new happens. For most of history, wealth meant land and conquest. But in the Italian city-states of the 1400s, a new path emerged: banking and trade. The Medici family of Florence essentially invented modern finance. They developed double-entry bookkeeping, letters of credit, and international banking networks that let merchants move wealth across Europe without physically transporting the gold. They also bankrolled popes, kings, and wars, making them the most politically connected family on the continent without ever commanding an army of their own. So what did the Renaissance top 1% actually look like day to day? This is the era where art becomes the ultimate status symbol. Commissioning a Botticelli or a Leonardo wasn't about loving art. It was about telling every visitor to your palazzo exactly how powerful you were. Your home, now called a palazzo, was architecturally designed to intimidate. High ceilings, classical columns, private chapels. You wore silk and velvet when most people wore rough wool. You had spices, nutmeg, pepper, cinnamon, which were so valuable that they were literally used as currency. The merchant elite of the Renaissance set the template for something we still live with today. The idea that wealth isn't just inherited, it can be built. That idea is about to explode on an industrial scale. The Industrial Revolution, in this time period, didn't just create new wealth, it created a completely new category of rich. For the first time in history, you could become as rich as any king or emperor who had ever lived, not by conquering territory, but by owning the right machines. John D. Rockefeller, at his peak, controlled roughly 1.5% of America's entire GDP. Adjusted to today's economy, that's a personal fortune somewhere around 400 to 700 billion. He didn't inherit it. He built it by monopolizing oil refining so completely that at one point Standard Oil controlled over 90% of all U.S. oil refining capacity. What did it feel like to be in the Gilded Age, top 1%? This is the era of the mansion with 40 bedrooms and a staff of 50, of private rail cars, which were basically mobile luxury apartments, of summer cottages in Newport, Rhode Island that had ballrooms. But here's the fascinating thing: Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, they all lived without antibiotics, without air conditioning, without effective cancer treatment. Carnegie's son died of scarlet fever. Wealth insulated you from many things, but biology wasn't fully one of them. The richest man on earth couldn't buy a year extra of life in ways we now take for granted, and the shadow side of this era is impossible to ignore. The Gilded Age top 1% built their fortunes on the backs of workers earning poverty wages in dangerous factories, children included. Carnegie's steel mills ran on 12-hour days, 7 days a week. The wealth was staggering, so was the exploitation required to produce it. The modern era. So where are we now? In the United States today, being in the top 1% of income means earning roughly $780,000 or more per year. For net worth, the threshold is somewhere around $11 to $13 million. The modern elite is also the most internally divided wealth tier that has ever existed. There's a much larger difference between the top and the bottom of the 1% than there is between the bottom of the elite and the middle class. Here's what's new about being in the modern top 1%. For most of history, wealth bought you better food, bigger shelter, and more political power. And today, it starts to buy you something even more fundamental: time and health. The wealthy have access to concierge medicine, advanced cancer screenings, personal trainers, and stress-reducing lifestyles that are extending their lives measurably beyond average. The gap in life expectancy between the top and the bottom 1% in the US is now roughly 15 years. About the same gap has existed between the nobility and peasants in medieval Europe. This is the top 1% over 10,000 years of history. If you found this interesting, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as comment what video you would like to see next.